not Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning, bright and sunny down here in Kampala with 24 minutes past the top of the hour of 9 a.m. That we do come to you live from on the streets of Kampala. So today, this morning, we will be discussing some of the results that we did witness from last night in the EFL Cup. Liverpool are through to the fourth round. We will talk about the Spanish La Liga, where Real Madrid beat up against Levante. A brace for Kylian Mbappe once again. A goal for Franco Mastantuano and Vinicius Junior. We will sort of talk about that in a bit because Real Madrid, that's 6-6. Prior to the start of the season, we were discussing Real Madrid, and really the picture did not look to be in full-blown strength as it is looking at the moment. Could it be the case that Real Madrid have arguably started with favorable fixtures in terms of difficulty? You could argue that it's a case that you can make really reasonably, but also you cannot help it but you cannot help it but credit Xabi Alonso for the kind of good work he is doing. Like I said, they are yet to look brilliant to my personal expectations, because I know they are capable of doing more. They are capable of dominating games, but at the moment, that's not what is happening. So we will sort of see, because I feel there is a lot more to come from them. But yesterday was one of those electric matches, because when you look at those goals coming in quick succession, you can't help it but appreciate what it is that they are able to do. So then other teams are in action today. Of course, in the Spanish La Liga, like I said, the EFL Cup third round also continues today. Plenty of action to come from that side as well. So do make sure you do not miss out on that action during the course of tonight. Yesterday, we were unable to do our watch along for the Liverpool game, the Real Madrid game, due to bad internet. I'm hoping that today will be a better day in regards to that game between Arsenal and Port Vale and all the other fixtures that we may need to keep tabs on throughout the course of tonight. But so it is what it is. Sometimes you get it your way, sometimes you don't. Unfortunately, it's the nature of our role. But like I promised you yesterday, I'm really hoping that if my dominoes fall in place, we will be able to get a more reliable setup in terms of accessing games and things like that, so that watch alongs are more entertaining and more sort of up to beat with your expectations. Anyways, for now, that's what it is. But we will start again with the results from the EFL Cup. Let's start it off with the Spanish La Liga, because I mean, beautiful day out there, good results. For some fell below my own expectations. For example, a team like Athletic Bilbao, I thought they would beat up against a very old former Girona, who had a very poor start to their campaign, and yet somehow they were unable to do that. Because when you look at that league tally, they are bottom of the league, and their only second from this season. Sorry, their only second point from this season is one that they picked up against a Bilbao, and we're talking about a Bilbao side who have had a better start to the season, because they've won 3, they've drawn 1, they've lost 2. 10 points out of a possible 18. By their own standards, is an underachievement. And Ernesto Valverde will know that game against Girona was there for their taking. First of all, it was a home game at San Mamés, but unfortunately, they were unable to capitalize on that. Again, but it is what it was. Mikel Juarez, the one that did score for Athletic Bilbao. Anyways, away to Espanyol. Espanyol managed to share the scores with Valencia in a 2-2 draw in yesterday's game. Arnaud Danjuma, one of the goal scorers on the night for Valencia, and Hugo Duro. Hugo Duro, I think, also scored during the weekend, while Paulo as well as Cabrera were on target for Espanyol in that game. Then Villarreal and Sevilla. Villarreal managed to beat up against Villarreal by 2 goals to sorry. But Villarreal managed to beat up against Sevilla by 2 goals to 1. Villarreal who are playing away from home. They're equally having sort of a bit of a decent start to their campaign. When you look at that table, they are third on the table with 13 points, a square with Barcelona, who are in second place, although albeit Villarreal have played a game more. Like I told you, for Real Madrid, it's been a perfect start. Speaking of Real Madrid, they managed to beat up against Levante by 4 goals to 1. Three beautiful goals from Vinicius Junior opening the scoring with the outside of his foot. Then you had another beautiful goal from Franco Mastantuano, the new summer recruit from River Plate, 17-year-old. They are scoring. I mean, beautiful goal that he did score. Of course, it was a counter-attack. Vinicius Junior did provide the assist there. Then in the second stanza, of course, Levante fell prey. They conceded a penalty to Kylian Mbappe, who stepped up and scored a penanka. A beautiful goal again from the penalty spot. And then just in quick succession, because that penalty came in the 64th minute, while in the 66th minute, Kylian Mbappe was at it again, scoring to make it 4-1 because they went on a quick counter and Adagula played him that brilliant through pass, which he took in his stride, dribbled past the goalkeeper and slotted it back into an empty net. So beautiful game of football. Eta Eyong had scored in the 54th minute, but all that turned out to be was a mere consolation. The victory means that Real Madrid remain perfect. That's 6-6, meaning they do lead the pile with 18 points on the table. The way they set up against Levante was in a 4-2-3-1 kind of system, where they had Thibaut Courtois in goal, Alvaro Fernandez Carreras being played in centre back, Fran Garcia on the left, Raul Asensio to the right, yes, as a right back, and Dean Howson as the other centre back pairing. Now, that's a bit of a mix of stuff, because we are talking about a Real Madrid side who left Eder Militao, a goal scorer from the weekend, David Alaba on the bench. We know that Antonio Rudiger is absent through injury and suspension. He was supposed to have suspension for the start of the season. Aurelio Chouameni all left the bench because it was Dani Ceballos and Fede Valverde that started in that double pivot. Then ahead of them was Vinicius Junior, Franco Mastantuano, with Adagula playing centrally behind Kylian Mbappe. So, I mean, when you look at the statistics that they managed to post, it was that sort of very, very good performance. 63% ball possession, 11 shots off target, 10 shots on target, compared to, Levante's 2 shots on target, 3 shots off target. So you can see that amount of dominancy that they were able to impose on the game. Thibaut Courtois only made 1 save, while his counterpart on the other side made as many as 6 saves. So that spoke to their dominancy, and I think they're picking up pace. Xabi Alonso, one of those managers that does rotate a team when he has good players at his disposal, and if anything, yesterday was evident of that. Like you can see, that's backline wall. Then you can see the midfield. Today you do not have to show how many. They were all left to the bench and things like that. So things are really, really going in the right direction. Speaking of which, like I was saying, one would argue that they've had a beautiful start because of some of the fixtures that they've been able to have in terms of simplicity, or in terms of less difficulty. Already, Kylian Mbappe is leading the top scorers with a tally of 7 goals. Ferran Torres and Eta Eyong from Villarreal do come in subsequently with 4 goals each. But if you were if you had to run things back to, let's say, match day 1 of the La Liga season, We know how they kicked off with that 1-0 victory against Osasuna, a 10-man Osasuna. Again, not the most difficult of games, but because it was at the Santiago Bernabeu, then they played against Rio Oviedo, beat them by 3-0. That was on match day 2. Then on match day 3, they were at home against Real Mallorca. The game finished by 2-1. Mallorca made it a bit difficult for Real Madrid, but they managed to win. But on paper, when you look, if you play Rio Oviedo, Osasuna, and Real Mallorca, that's a brilliant start. That's sort of it's an ideal start in terms of the opponents that you were able to face. Then they went away to a little bit of a difficult game that was against Real Sociedad, and they managed to win it by 2-1. I think that's the game in which Dinhausen got his red card. Not to say, but I mean, it goes without saying that Real Sociedad have not had the best of starts to the La Liga campaign. Then on match day 5, they were at home against Espanyol. They scored 2 brilliant goals, Eder Militao and Kylian Mbappe. And now yesterday on match day 6, winning 4-1 against Levante. When you look at their next game, that's a bit of a difficult one. It's the Madrid derby against Atletico de Madrid, but we're talking about an Atletico de Madrid side who've had a difficult start to their season in terms of posting results. Not that the opponents that they have faced have been very, very difficult, but they themselves have not done enough to back themselves, because as we speak, after 5 games played, they only have a modest 6 points. 1 victory, 3 draws, and 1 loss. So they've drawn so many games. I wouldn't be surprised if they went into that, Madrid derby and avoided a loss and forced it into draw. It's going to be a home game against the Wanda Metropolitano, but Real Madrid will come as the bigger side, looking for a perfect start of 7 out of 7. That's next weekend. So the Madrid derby will be on. Today, Atletico de Madrid are in action against Rayo Vallecano, while in the other games, Getafe will be up against Deportivo Alvarez, Real Sociedad will be up against Mallorca, and Osasuna will take on Elche. So then when you push things further forward, on the 3rd and 4th of October, Real Madrid will be at home for match day 8 against Villarreal. Another bit of a difficult game, so you can see that the opponents are shifting. On the same weekend, Barcelona will be up against Sevilla. That will be after the iteration of the Champions League in the middle of the week, and then we will go for the international break. And then after the international break, they will return to play away to Getafe. So again, overall, not the most difficult of starts, but they're going to have a bit of a difficult couple of weeks coming ahead, because when you play Atletico de Madrid away and then you return home to play Villarreal, in between having to travel to play Kairati Almaty in the UEFA Champions League, needing at least 12 hours of travel, then trust me, that doesn't mean it doesn't get any easier than it doesn't get any easier in that regard. Anyways, away from the Spanish La Liga, quickly we do run to the EFL Cup. We won't discuss all the results in terms of a breakdown, but Barnsley were handed a 6-0 thumping at the hands of Brighton, while Cardiff City knocked out Burnley, beating them by 2-1. Fulham beat up against Cambridge by 0-0 to knock them out, while Chelsea overcame Lincoln City. I did not get to watch this Chelsea game, but if you were to ask me, I would expect that Chelsea would have had a very, very more dominant performance and have a better scoreline than they managed to put up. Yes, they were dominant in terms of performance, but in terms of the scoreline, I mean, it just did not fall for them. It just did not fall for them, because they only had 4 shots on target, despite having a 72% ball possession. Then when you look at when you look at their starting 11, it was a bit of a strong one. Philippe Jurgensen in goal. This one came on after that red card to Robert Sanchez against Manchester United. Jurel Hato, Trevor Chalobah, Wesley Fofana, Malo Gusto. That's a backline that's good enough to start in the Premier League. Enzo Fernandez in midfield, Andre Santos playing alongside him. Alejandro Garnacho, Facundo Benanote, Jamie Gittens, and Tarek George. I mean, Jamie Gittens, Alejandro Garnacho, these are players that Chelsea brought in the summer. Then when you look at Facundo Benanote was one of the goal scorers, while the other goal was scored by Tarek George. Remember, Tarek George was on the verge of joining Fulham at the tail end of the summer. We're talking about a Lincoln City side that hit the best of the upright in their first attempt on goal, and Chelsea survived that narrow scare. So, like I said, I did not get to watch the game, but you can see that Chelsea, by miles, even their second 11 is, I'm sure, in terms of cost, far preponderates that of Lincoln City. And so it's not a surprise that they managed to go through at the expense of Lincoln City. Then quickly away from away from Chelsea, the other results. So Wycombe Wanderers and knock out Wigan Athletic. Guys, in case you're experiencing some background noise, there's somebody that has chosen to mow the lawn. But I hope a microphone can cancel out the noise. Anyways, like I said, Wycombe Wanderers knocked out Wigan Athletic, beating them by 2-0, while Wolverhampton Wanderers got the better of Everton, beating them by 2-0. Goals from Monentes as well as Arokodera were the goal scorers there for Wolves. Wolves, I think, really needed that result after a very bad start in their campaign in the Premier League. Then Wrexham beat up against Reading to knock them out, while Liverpool got the better of Southampton. Now, the result in itself may sort of dissuade you into thinking that Liverpool, were astronomical in their performance, but it was far from that. Southampton really gave Liverpool a run for their money. The goalkeeper, of course, initially was forced into very brilliant stuff, self in the opening minutes of the game. But you had Southampton hit the crossbar. You had them forcing Georgie Mamadashvili into a brilliant save as well. So Southampton were no pushover, and that's why the margin of victory was as narrow as it is. Then Southampton then missed some golden chances. There's an opportunity. In fact, that opportunity that sort of hits the crossbar, the rebound is headed back in by Southampton player, but it just goes wide. I mean, in an open net, he had the entire goal at his mercy. And then, of course, Southampton were caught in error trying to play out of the back. They conceded possession, and that's how Alexander Isak got off the mark at Anfield, scoring his first goal in a Liverpool jersey. And then in the second half, Hugo Ekitike was brought on. This one ended up getting a red card, a stupid one, I must say. I mean, absolutely stupid. He should know better, even for a 23-year-old, that when you're already on a yellow card, you do not need to take off a shot for scoring the simple goal and then subsequently get yourself sent off. That was very stupid, and I mean, I would totally understand, if not suggest, that he should be fined by his club for that kind of stupid mistake or kind of behavior, because Southampton managed to get themselves back into the game. That was around the 77th minute when Charles, in fact, the 76th minute when Charles scored the equalizer, but in the 85th minute, Hugo Ekitike scored. Federico Chiesa providing both assists in the game. So Hugo Ekitike scores a simple goal. There's a long ball played in from deep in midfield. Federico Chiesa makes a good run, gets onto the ball, crosses it, and he has a simple tap into the back of the net. He runs to the crowd, takes off his shirt, gets the second booking, and off his setup. And Arne Slot couldn't have been more disappointed in his behavior for that. In fact, while speaking about the matter in the aftermath of the result, he said this, and I quote, I think I said when I got my red card against Everton, that's always stupid. I'm old-fashioned. I'm 47 and old. maybe I haven't played at this level, but I did score a few goals. And if I would have scored a goal like this, I would have turned around and walked up to Federico Chiesa and said, that goal is all about you. So in other words, Anas wrote that, trying to tell Hugo Tike that goal has little to do with you. You need not to have taken off your shirt and get yourself set off, because then that means that by by hook or crook, then they definitely, most definitely, have to play against. They'll have to field Alexander Isak. Uh, they will have to field Alexander Isak in the weekend, regardless of what regardless of what you may think of them, or maybe contrary to what his plans would have been while planning for the weekend. They do have. Anyway, we'll review that story in a bit. But so, I mean, when you look at the weekend, match day 6, is it? Match day 6, match day 7. Match day 6. Yes, match day 6 are coming up in the Premier League very, very soon. That's over the weekend. We do have games, and Liverpool will be playing away from home against Crystal Palace. So they will have to field Alexander Isak as their target man. Following that, with regard to Hugo Ekitike, like I said, a very, very stupid one to concede. A player of his stature. I mean, yes, you've scored. Congratulations on scoring. I mean, he's in a very, very brilliant form. He so far scored 5 goals in about 7 appearances for Liverpool. The first was against Crystal Palace in the Community Shield. In the Premier League alone, he's so far scored 3 goals. He did score in Liverpool's 4-2 victory against FC Bournemouth. He scored in that game against Newcastle, which they eventually won by 3 goals to 2. And then he scored in the Merseyside derby on the weekend against, Everton. He did not score against Arsenal and against Burnley, and then yet again he was at it against, Southampton in the EFL Cup. So he's had a brilliant start to his Liverpool career, almost a dream start, one that Manchester United fans would have hoped Benjamin Sesko, the kind of start he would have. Possibly one that Arsenal fans, perhaps even more, hoped that Victor Gyökeres would start with. And not that Victor Gyökeres has had a bad start to his campaign, but at least he's had what does pass for a sort of a decent start, because 3 goals in 5 games is not a bad return on investment. So really, when you look at it that way, but Hugo Ekitike is everything Liverpool hoped he would be in terms of putting that ball in the back of the net. The way he plays, the way his holder play, his dribbling, his pace is good on the ball, gets himself in the right positions, and he can play as a 10. From what I've seen, has no difficulty sort of playing behind somebody, and things like that. So he's just brilliant. He's really, really, really can come good in as far as being in a Liverpool jersey is concerned. So anyways, congratulations, Liverpool. You managed to advance to the 4th round of the EFL Cup, and that is brilliant to know that you managed to get that. Then quickly, let's run into today's fixtures. Like I told you, I've already given you what's to come in the Spanish La Liga. Then there's more to come in the 3rd round of the EFL Cup, with Manchester City playing away to Huddersfield Town, and Newcastle are going to be at home against Bradford City, while Tottenham Hotspur will take on Doncaster Rovers, and then Port Vale do welcome Arsenal to their ground. The expectation here, of course, Arsenal, who are playing away to Port Vale, will be away to Newcastle over the weekend. That's another brilliant, big fixture to sort of look forward to, and it will come on in the late kickoff on Sunday at around 6:30 p.m. So, yeah. Then now. So looking at those very fixtures, particularly Man City, the expectation is that all these Premier League teams should be going through at the expense of their lesser opponents. I mean, you Manchester City, you're playing Huddersfield Town, no easy opponent, but beat them, advance. Newcastle, same story against Bradford City. Tottenham, you're up against Doncaster Rovers. I mean, that's a winnable fixture. And for Arsenal, need I say no more? It's a very, very winnable fixture. With Arsenal, we do expect just as most Premier League teams tend to do, just as Liverpool did yesterday. Because when you look at Liverpool's setup, for example, in the back line, they had Jeremy Frimpong, they had Joe Gomez, they had Giovanni Leoni, the new defender they did sign for Parma, and they had Andy Robertson, they had Georgie Madashvili in goal, they had Curtis Jones in midfield alongside Wataru Endo. Then ahead of him, they had Ngomoha, they had Nyoni, they had Federico Chiesa and Alexander Isak. So you can see a whole lot of changes that they managed to pull up. And so even with some of these teams, that's the expectation, particularly for Arsenal. We do expect Kepa Arrizabalaga to play his first official game for Arsenal in terms of expected starting lineups. Then when it comes to that sort of team setup, unfortunately for Arsenal, Hero Hinkap did suffer a groin injury, so he chances are he's going to be absent for this one. But at left back, I'll expect Miles Lewis Kelly to start. At right back, I would expect to have at right back, I would expect maybe Mali Solomon or Josh Nicholas, and then you have Ben White playing in centre back alongside Christian Mosquera. That is what my expectation would be. Then you look at the Arsenal midfield. I would expect Christian Nogard to start in that deep line role alongside Mikel Merino as his left eight, and then Ethan Nwaneri to play as the attacking midfielder. Then on the wings, I would expect to see Max Dorman on the right wing. I'd expect to see Gabriel Martinelli start on the left wing. I'd expect to see who starts as a centre forward. Actually, I'd play Gabriel Martinelli as the centre forward and put Leandro Trossard to start on the left wing. So that means Bukayo Saka, Ebeleche Eze are all rested. William Saliba, Gabriel Magalhaes, Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi, Victor Gyökeres, all those become rested players. So yeah, that's the kind of team that I'd look to sort of set up in the work of that game. So unless you have a divergent view in that respect, again, like I said, unfortunately for Arsenal, they're sort of struggling with injuries. Like I told you, Pierre Hinkap is out through injury. Then Noni Madueke did suffer a knee injury in that game against Manchester City and is expected to be sidelined for up to 2 months, according to the Athletic. So yeah. Maybe Andre Anos to start as the striker, but for Mikel Arteta, I mean, if you're Mikel Arteta, you're not taking any chances with these games. You're taking them as serious as they can because you want a piece of silverware this season. Whether it starts with the EFL Cup, so be it. So I do expect Arsenal to be very, very competitive in this competition, regardless of what's to come at the weekend, regardless of what's to come in the UEFA Champions League, and things like that are really. Anyways, there's a report that I want us to discuss, a news report about Dani Alves. About Dani Alves. Now, apparently, Dani Alves owes La Liga MX Pumas 2.2 million over contract dispute. Then, in March this year, he had rape accusations or a rape conviction quashed. Now, the reason as why I want us to discuss this a bit before we sign out for today is, for example, and after serving time in prison, Dani Alves was found not guilty of rape. Life moves on like nothing happened, especially for the woman who destroyed his life. Now, this is what we are discussing when those charges were brought before Thomas Partey and people were trying to sort of discredit Arsenal or argue that Arsenal should have done better. They should have sidelined the player. They should have sent him to the dogs. And I remember making reference to Benjamin Mendy, that again he too was falsely accused. He ended up being acquitted. The most unfortunate thing in all this is that while there's no easy way to it, because it's a bit of a difficult, there's a delicate balance to draw. On one side you have an acclaimed victim, and then on the other side you have the accused, who himself can be a victim of malice, and reputational damage. Now, for me, the unfortunate bit about these things is that oftentimes, when they are not true, when players have their names dragged in the mud, when players are costed their reputation and their careers, they are accused, walk away like nothing happened. There's no penalty for them. Now, rape in itself is bad, or attempted rape, sexual assault, whatever the offense is bad, and they should be prosecuted to the finest of details to get to the bottom of it. But when you falsely accuse somebody of doing things that they did not do to you, there should be repercussions. And until we get to a day where there are repercussions for people making those kinds of things, then we will also be able to protect the other gender that are oftentimes accused of these crimes. Now, the reason as why that is difficult is, one, also, just because one is proved not guilty may not necessarily imply that it did not happen, because they may not be guilty due to a lack of evidence. So for example, if you're being accused of stealing and then we have no evidence that you stole, but an item did disappear, is that the fact that something went missing, we have no evidence, but we suspect you're the one that stole it. So if you're the one that stole it, we can not prove that you stole it. So you walk away scot-free. So that's a bit of difficult things that are, for example, in the UK, it's widely known that sexual assault and rape charge cases are oftentimes very, very difficult to prove, to prove in court. And yet, in some cases, I would want to believe personally that these sexual assault things and maybe rape have happened. I would want to believe so. But also, in the event where they've not really, really happened and players are having their names smeared, what do we do? For example, Benjamin Mendy had his entire career ruined because of those allegations, because of those reports. You remember Neymar's name being dragged in the mud. Somebody was trying the other day to reawaken their charges on Cristiano Ronaldo, things that happened in 2009, for which they chose to settle the matter out of court, and things like that. So, anyways, so in this particular case, I feel for Dani Alves. Dani lost everything, absolutely everything, including his family. As a man, the game was rigged against him from the start. Once worth $60 million. This is according to some online reports. I do not know to what extent of credibility for some of these figures being quoted. His empire collapsed after being accused of rape in a Barcelona night club bathroom. At 39, spent 14 months in Brian's to prison. Sponsors like Puma cut ties, costing him millions. Lawsuits piled up, including a 2.2 million claim from Puma's UNAM. His marriage to Joanna Sons also crumbled, ending in 2024. Ending in a 2024 divorce filing, convicted in February 2024 under Spain's strict consent laws, based largely on accuser's testimony. He was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison and ordered to pay 150,000 euros in damages, covered in part by allies, including Neymar's family. Despite proclaiming his innocence, Alves appealed on March 28th this year, 2025, Catalonia's High Court unanimously acquitted him, citing flaws and inaccuracies in the evidence, inconsistencies in the woman's story, and the lack of corroborating proof. He walked free after 839 days behind bars. Meanwhile, the accuser remains anonymous and uncharged for an unproven claim. Now, I remember during part of the proceedings, it did come out again. I cannot put my arm on it that Messi was helping him pay for his legal bills, and I think the only people and that I think can relate with these kinds of stories are celebrities, athletes, celebrities, players. One that, for example, somebody can be planted on you or against you to cause up such a thing. For example, I've had in the press on multiple occasions of some of these athletes and stars being accused of being involved with young girls, girls below the age of consent. And the disturbing bit, oftentimes, is that they would say they met at a nightclub. And I'm wondering, if they are underage, how did they get in the nightclub in the first place? Shouldn't we be holding the bar or the nightclub accountable for this particular case? How do you let in minors? So if you're going to charge somebody for being involved with a minor, how did they find themselves in the bar? So the minor broke the law by going to the wrong place in the first place. Now, I'm not saying that sexual assault or rape should be justified just because somebody was in the wrong place. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, one, you're a minor, you're not supposed to be in a club. You're in the wrong place. You're breaking the law. The bar or the club letting a minor, that's a crime. Now, the expectation of people partying within a nightclub or bar, the assumption always is whoever is in here is of age, is an adult, So then that means they can make their own decisions. Now, let's assume putting the minors away. Some of these ladies are unscrupulous people. For example, they know these are celebrities, they have the money, they're athletes, they're paid well, they're paid good money. So if I cozy up to him and maybe have a night with them, I can wake up tomorrow and allege that they tried to rape me. I can wake up tomorrow and say they sexually assaulted me. And while my claims may be unfounded, I can still make that claim. And if the media catches wind of it, I get to tell my stupid story or maybe extort this person to say, if you want this to go away quiet, pay me $200,000 or whatever. Because we know part of why Cristiano Ronaldo, just to settle his matter, that is infamously reported about in 2000, having happened in Los Angeles, possibly in 2009, is because he knows that it's not about proving yourself innocent all the time. It's about protecting a name that you've worked so hard to build. Because, as we know, so for example, Thomas Partey was investigated since sometime in February or April 2022, up to date. It was only midway this year that charges were brought before him. Now he made his court. He has so far since made, I think, 2 court appearances, and his case is supposed to start, I think, next year. The hearing in December 2026. That's a year apart. Now, if all that time they are writing about this case, or every time your name comes up, it's mentioned, then your name is going through a reputational damage. In other words, you can have such allegations or cases drag on for a period of 5 years. Now, we know that even a year for a football player, for a sports person, is a very long year. Look at it when they miss out through injury. So you spend 5 years running through courts of law, trying to defend your name, and then you turn out that you're innocent. But at the end of it all, your name is being dragged, you lost your income sources, sponsorships have been pulled because the companies are brands that are associated with you do not want their name to be found in disrepute. Then what? It's very unfortunate, but it does happen more often than we care to admit. But should we leave it to court, or should there be penalties? Because also the counter argument is that if you put penalties against this, it will sort of limit or scare away people that have genuine causes to come forward. Anyways, you remember Gaffney Sigatson being falsely accused of molesting a minor, those kinds of things? Anyways, it's been a pleasure doing this with you. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.